We're finishing a second review permanency planning hearing and a request from the Foster Care Review Board to have a look at their work. So we did begin this on, let's see, August 25th, and we had to continue to today, which is also something that we kind of slid into the docket. So if we run out of time, we'll look for more time in order to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to be heard. It sounds like there's been some changes too in the direction of the case in which we were going to be going. So I'll let the attorneys address that after appearances.
Carson, lawyer, guardian ad litem.
Ms. Saja Thomas, counsel for the department.
Jamie Dillon, Lenawee County Department of Health and Human Services foster care worker.
Michael McFarland, representing Ashley Casey.
Ashley Casey, Mom.
Mr. McFarland, would you like to reiterate your comments on your client's intentions?
Your Honor, I have discussed with my client releasing her rights, and she's been going back and forth. I have some capacity questions, as I'm also her MI attorney, whether she has the ability to really make an informed decision on that. So with that, I would ask to proceed with trial. I want to advise everybody that we're not voluntarily releasing her rights, and I'd be uncomfortable doing that, Your Honor.
All right, that's fine. Any other comments about that for the record, Ms. Thomas?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Howard?
No, Your Honor.
Very well. Okay, so let's take a look at the rest of the issues scheduled for our second review permanency planning hearing in the Foster Care Review Board. Excuse me. Ms. Thomas, did you have anything for the record on that today?
Your Honor, Ms. Dillon testified at our hearing on 8/25. I believe at that juncture when we wrapped up, it was going to be Mr. McFarland who presented any witnesses. Otherwise, we do not have anything further for the review or the placement portion.
Thank you. Anything from you today for the record, Mr. McFarland?
I have one witness, Heather Garnett, which is a contested family placement.
Okay, for what reason?
To testify as far as the bonds, to testify as far as why it would be in the best interest of the minor child to be placed with her and not with foster care, Your Honor. I had announced that in court last time. That's why we adjourned this, was for her to testify today. She came down here from Detroit to do so.
Right. Thank you for that preface. Okay, so Ms. Heather Barnett, come on up for a witness stand.
You raise your right hand. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Resist that.
Garnett, I don't know if you're soft spoken or not, but we need to have you speak up because they're recording, okay?
Okay.
Where do you currently live?
Lincoln Park, Michigan.
Okay, and how are you related to Ashley?
Her sister-in-law. My husband is her brother.
Okay. And how far away are you from here?
It's about an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay, now you've been having visit with the minor child, and we're not going to use the child's name because we're on YouTube. So you've been having visits with the minor child, correct?
Yes.
How long have you had visits, and what's the duration and frequency?
It's been kind of random. I've been visiting with her since July, I believe. I've had like one overnight and then a weekend overnight. And then previously another overnight.
Are these overnights with my client or not?
No.
Okay. Does the child recognize you from these visits?
Yes.
And how do you know that?
She starts smiling and getting excited when she sees us.
Okay. How do you mean by getting excited?
Just smiles and starts waving her hands.
And she's how old now?
7 months.
Okay. In your family, who resides with you besides your husband?
Me, my husband, and our 5 children.
Okay, now you've already been vetted, which means you've already been checked out by Child Protective Services for appropriateness, correct?
Correct.
You ever had any foster children or raised any children other than your biological children?
I did foster kinship my brother's 4 children last year.
Was that through a court?
Yes.
Okay, which court system was that?
I believe like Detroit, DHS.
Okay, thank you. And There was some discussion that the child is receiving services here in Lenawee County. You understand that, correct?
Yes.
If the court were to permit your move, to move the minor child to you up there, you had told me what your thoughts were about services in Lenawee. What are your thoughts?
I had called the Ivy Rehab that the baby attends. They have multiple locations. They have a location, a few in my area, and I did call and they said they would have availability as soon as next week with no delays in that. And I said I also would continue to drive the baby here for services if that's what was recommended.
What, since you've had this minor child overnight in a weekend, what are your understanding about the needs of the child?
I know she gets PTOT, infant mental health, and I believe she's gonna be getting a helmet soon for her disproportionate head.
As far as her treating physician, until you can make a switch up in the Detroit area, would you drive her down here for any physical exams and anything else? Until you could switch?
Oh, yes.
I know you've been involved in conversations with my client and you, correct?
Mhm.
Say yes.
Yes.
You know that she has a very strong desire to perhaps even have visits with the child after, or if her rights are voluntarily released, or if they're terminated, not knowing which way it's going to happen, but you understand her desires, correct?
Yes.
If you think it's in the best interest of the minor child not to have visits with mother, how would you proceed? If you were, well, let me switch course. The purpose for placement is what? There's more than just placement with you, correct?
Correct.
What's the ultimate goal you would want out of this?
Family, we're family oriented, raise her and
Adopt?
yes, adopt.
Okay, okay. And if there were a termination of my client's parental rights, either by adoption or by, voluntary release, voluntarily giving up her rights, or by trial, which her rights were terminated, I don't know what would happen at trial, but if that happens, if you thought it's in the child's best interest not to have contact with mother, what would you do? Sure. Mother thinks that perhaps she can come in anytime and visit the child if you ultimately adopt the child. Is that true or not?
No, we've discussed that there would be boundaries and obviously supervised visitation, things like that. We have discussed that there would be boundaries for sure.
And if your choice was for her not to have visits, that's something that you thought that was in the best interest of the child that you would do.
If it was in the best interest of the child, yes.
As far as placement right now, because we're on the placement issue, what do you have set up at your house for the placement?
She has everything she needs. She has a crib, clothes, bottles, diapers, formula.
Separate room?
She's in our room right now with the crib. Yeah.
And Child Protective Services has been up and they've investigated that, correct? Is there anything else that you wish to contribute as far as why you think placement should be with you instead of a foster care family?
I just think that it's the best interest of the child to be with family, to have, she does have a bond with her family, which is us, and to grow up feeling she belongs, with family, and I believe that's important.
What are the ages of the children in your house?
My oldest is 17, my youngest is 5. All in between.
Okay. The 2 children that were previously removed and placed up for adoption of my client, do you know if they're with family or not?
I do not.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
Okay. You never had any contact with any of these children, right?
No.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Questions, Ms. Thomas?
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for being with us, Ms. Barnett. I just have a couple questions to clarify for the record, okay? How long have you and your husband been married?
We've been married for 10 years.
Okay. And the 5 children in the home, are they, do you guys have a blended family, or are they all biological children for you too?
No, we've been married for 10, but we've been together for 20. They're all
Okay.
our children.
Okay. And so there's no issues with like parenting times or anything like that, right? Like you guys are all together.
No, we're all together.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. And from my understanding, you are also a registered nurse. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What is between you and your spouse, what does your work schedules look like?
I work part-time weekends so that I'm able to be with my kids through the week for schooling and school events. My husband works during the week and he's off weekends. So we just take turns.
Alternate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you work in a particular department as an RN?
Yes, I work on a progressive care unit at the hospital.
Okay. And would it be fair to say that you have a really good understanding of how to get in touch with service providers and what care is necessary when you're seeing any developmental issues or health issues?
Yes.
And how long have you and your family lived in Lincoln Park?
We bought our house maybe close to 10 years now, almost.
Okay. And when you indicate that you're family oriented, can you tell us a little bit more about what that means for you?
We strive in trying to take time to do family things, like family vacations, family outings, things like that. My husband and our children, and also some of our, like my nieces and nephews. My house is always a safe space for all the kids. They always accumulate at my house.
In your testimony with Mr. McFarland, you mentioned you believe that being with family is in the baby's best interest. Were there any other considerations for her best interest, or what other best interest factors do you have in mind?
I'm not sure what you mean.
When you say best interest of the child, what does that mean to you?
I believe that we can provide for her the medical necessities, also the family bonding, just giving her a good life.
At the hearing on August 25th, Mr. McFarland showed us some photos, and it looked like you had put together a little collage of photos of the baby and different environments or different people. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you spend your time with her when you do have her?
Yeah, on that particular weekend, we went to Chuck E. Cheese. A lot of the nieces and nephews had got to meet Star. Some of the cousins got to meet her, and just kind of spent the day out, and yeah, that was pretty much it.
So it looks like you have a pretty big extended family from the photos, if I'm recalling correctly. Is that fair to say?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. All right. With that, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Mr. Holt?
Just briefly, when you have Star, how do the visits generally go as far as her behavior?
Usually the drive, she sleeps most of the drive, which is, an hour long. We get home, she's usually, the kids are all wanting to see her and everything, so they're kind of talking with her. She doesn't have any like off behaviors to me. She's usually happy unless she's hungry or I can tell when she gets tired, she starts to fuss a little, rub her eyes. She goes down really easy for me.
Is she on like a normal like nap schedule and bedtime routine when she's at your house?
Yeah, she goes down around 8 o'clock for me. She does wake up a few times through the night. She's up usually 6:30 and we just start our day from there.
And then, so you don't notice any like clinginess or crying when she's with you guys?
She gets a lot of attention at my house pretty consistently. The kids are always giving her attention, so I haven't noticed her being like extra clingy because they're just always there giving her that attention.
I have nothing further.
Redirect, Mr. McFarland?
Just briefly, for the weekends, it was touched that you work weekends and your husband doesn't. Where would this minor child, how would the placement look like on weekends?
On weekends, my husband is home on the weekends with the children.
Okay.
He's very involved. He's always taking care of the kids when I work.
Have you had a chance to take a look at this child's medical records, being a nurse, and what her needs are?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Would it be, how would you classify the strength of your marriage to your husband? Weak, strong? Does it look like it's going to be that you're not going to be divorced in the near future? Tell us what.
I would say it's strong. We work very well together. You have to having a big family like that, but I would say it's strong. We definitely work good together and help when I pick up where I'm needed and he picks up where he's needed, so.
Okay. On your husband's side of the family, are there any cultural considerations that are followed regarding special cultural
No.
practices or
Not that I know
beliefs?
of.
Okay. And just lastly, because it was touched upon last time, did you know that my client was involved? When did you know my client was involved with the court system with this child?
She had reached out to me, I believe it was June 26th, and then I reached out to Jamie the 27th, the next day.
As soon as you possibly could,
Yeah,
you let them know. And what did you let them know on that day?
that I was interested in getting placement of the child.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms. Thomas, any recross?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Howard?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you for your testimony. You may return to your seat. Any other witnesses, Mr. McFarland?
No, thank you.
Mr. Howard?
No, Your Honor.
Comments in closing, beginning with Ms. Thomas.
Thank you, Your Honor. As it relates to the review portion of the hearing, Your Honor, we would just ask the court to make the proper determinations as relates to reasonable efforts and that the department has employed all services with in compliance with ADA for Ms. Casey. We are, I don't know how this looks moving forward regarding parenting time, because I guess that's dependent on placement. And as it relates to the placement, the department had recommended, based on policy, that the child be moved with a relative, and the Foster Care Review Board does not agree with that placement option. I believe that the Foster Care Review Board has followed their internal policies and how they conducted their meeting and honoring the foster care parents' rights. I think that for the department, there are a lot of considerations that have to go into play. And first and foremost is understanding how important family is for our children in care. But I recognize that the LGAL in this court may also have other factors that it considers in a best interest determination. If this court is inclined to adopt the Foster Care Review Board's recommendations, I would just ask that the court look at FOM 902 for a court-ordered placement exception to ensure that the child's funding can continue to run. In order for that to run, there must, all of the following must happen. The court must provide notice for and hold a hearing to determine the best placement for the child, which I believe this court has done. It must hear relevant testimony and work with all parties, including MDHHS, to make appropriate placement decisions. And I believe this court has done that. And the court must enter a detailed written order that explains how the court considered the department's recommendation and why the court directed a different placement. The court must provide a transcript of the hearing if the order is not detailed and clear. And then, of course, all other Title IV-E eligibility requirements must be satisfied in conjunction with the elements stated above. In this case, I prepared to consider the best interest through the adoption code. As this court's well aware, the juvenile code does not necessarily outline specific best interests. We typically get those from our case law, but this court has great deference in what it would consider for the child's best interest. And under the adoption code, which similarly mirrors our Child Custody Act, I think this court is well aware of those factors and can make a determination based on the information before it. I think that the family members are well situated. And I think that we just have this little one is very lucky to have two homes who are very willing and able and frankly, very committed to her well-being. And, the department also understands the importance of those biological connections. As this court's aware, we've had a long history of child abuse and neglect cases for this family with, Miss Ashley not being necessarily raised in her biological home either. And, prior children being removed and them being adopted. And we have another sister whose child's in care. So I just point that out to say, if there's a way for us to break the cycle for this family, I would ask the court to consider that. With that, I would ask for a 90-day review. And if Miss Casey is not releasing her parental rights, I would anticipate that would also need to be set for a termination hearing. Thank you.
Comments, Mr. McFarland?
Your Honor, I do not believe that the Foster Care Review Board looked at the ADA issues and my client's mental limitations. As this court knows, and I'm sure will take judicial notice, there is an MI case on my client, which I am her attorney. I do know that there is, as we heard testimony, a very specific time frame in which my client had to reveal family for placement. I think we have to give some deference to her limitations, Your Honor, her ability to do that. I did not hear testimony that simple questions were asked. Who's your brother? Do you have any brothers and sisters, and what are their names and addresses or phone numbers? I didn't hear that testimony today. But as soon as Heather testified today, she found out, as soon as she could practically call, the very next day, she called Child Protective Services and asked that she be considered for placement. She does bring some things into this under the best interest that the foster family does not bring. We've heard testimony that there's a great bond between the minor child and Heather and biological family. I have no doubt that there is a bond with the foster family, but it appears as though this child is able to bond quite nicely with both. So I don't know if that's an overwhelming factor. This child does have medical issues, as this court is aware of, which I think does place our request for family placement with a licensed nurse at a benefit that you do not see at the foster family. We also see that, and I think that any child, and I've not known one that when they reach 18, they don't want to look up, if not earlier, where we came from, why am I adopted, who's my family, why aren't I with family? So I think we also have to consider the future mental health of this child and emotional welfare, Your Honor, not just short-term, what's going on now, but how's this child going to be down the road? I think knowing that it's been placed, hopefully adopted by family, I think would relieve mental stress down the road for this child, maybe for all of its life. We've heard that this placement wishes to adopt, or this potential placement wishes to adopt, and they're not going to just allow mom to come willy-nilly into this child's life, which I think may be some concern that was addressed by this testimony. She would also, we've heard no testimony that the child is in any way uncomfortable by the drive up to Lincoln Park. Matter of fact, the child child sleeps in the car. But we did hear testimony that services could be transferred. It appears as though as shortly as a week that the witness testifies. She's looked into that. And if it takes longer, she will come down and she will keep any appointments here in Lenawee County. Which I think is very admirable. So we have a bond with our entire family, a large biological family. Child not too far, the youngest is 5 years of age, which I think is also important. Strong relationship, strong marriage. I think also under the best interest factors that supports the position of the agency over the Foster Care Review Board. And we are also asking that the court have placement with family. Thank you.
Mr. Howitt?
I'll rely primarily on my extensive report I gave at the review hearing, the beginning of the review hearing on August 25th, where I discussed the department's policy, where I differed from it, and what I believe is in the best interest of this child, which is to remain in its current placement, and for this court to adopt the Foster Care Review Board decision, which was to differ from this policy. I hit on a lot of best interest factors there in that report, and I still maintain that it is in our best interest to stay there. Just some updates since the child has gone on these weekend visits with the caregivers or with the relatives. When she came back, I had a report that she absolutely clinged to her current caregiver and current placement, where she grabbed her. So that was a report I received. And then when she did come back, she took a 4-hour nap at her current placement. I also, and I'm not saying it's impossible, I find it hard to believe that there's a strong bond with a 6-month-old or 7-month-old baby in a family after just, one weekend visit. I think we've seen that in my experience that it takes some time to create these bonds with these children and their caregivers. And then, again, I'll just reiterate from the people that I've talked to, which include this worker's testimony, the parent aide, the service providers at CMH, the letter from the OTPT care providers at IV Rehab. There's all this consensus that is in the child's best interest to remain here. Another development is mother will not be releasing her rights today, so we'll be continuing to provide reunification services, which would include the visits. So just more travel this would create for the baby back here. The mother, to my understanding, is still court ordered into an adult foster care home here. So again, just further, barriers to reunification if the child was in Lincoln Park to get back here to Adrian. So with that being said, again, I'll just rely primarily on my report I gave on the August 25th here. Thank you.
Thank you. The court finds all interested parties were given notice for purposes of today's review hearing, permanency planning hearing, and hearing on the Foster Care Review Board placement decision. They did issue an indication that they did not agree with the placement change. The relative who testified today did come forward asking for placement. Typically, the priority for relative placement exists for the first 30 days following removal. And that is because removal in and of itself is really a traumatic event for a child. This child has done very well since removal, coming leaps and bounds in her ability to communicate, engage in services, diagnose what she needs for services. Many of the things that were frustrated or muted, unfortunately, when she was in the care of her mother, due to her mother's own natural limitations in many ways, and also her lack of progress on her case services. Since the removal, I've had a litany of examples of this given in the testimony of the workers, but also in the records that I've received. I have the L&L parent aid observation logs and the Orchards Family Services observation logs or parenting programming. Yes, and they all indicate that the natural limitations that Ms. Casey has, as well as the opportunities that she's had available to her, unfortunately, are not bearing out the kind of progress we'd like to see from her moving forward. Part of the reason the court removed the child from the mom was because she was living in a place with a lot of individuals who couldn't be checked by the department or regulated, or the child couldn't be kept safe, really, in light of the number of people going in and out, and Ms. Casey's use of substances. She dropped out of her services to treat her mental health issues in large part, not to mention the complications caused by using substances while trying to manage a mental health condition. So certainly we do have somebody who qualifies for ADA services, but that also requires a person to step forward and to engage in those services and to engage in the services that are provided by the department and the providers like L&L Parent Aid and Orchards. We had a couple of no shows by Ms. Casey because she slept in or she had conflicts with her calendar. Just a lot more indications that she's not been able to manage things well enough, even with all the supports in place that do consider her particular limitations and diagnoses. So the child has to remain in care, in short, which is one of the things I always have to look at as it relates to the review of permanency planning hearing. And I started off by talking about the priority for relatives in the first 30 days because it's important not to move a child more times than necessary. The idea of stability and permanency and how that affects a child and their developmental progress is severely impacted by an upheaval like a change in where they're living, who's taking care of them primarily. In this case, we did have testimony from Jamie Dillon that the second, in fact, that she had the information for the relative, she called them, and that was outside of the first 30 days. And she moved very quickly in order to look at whether or not the relative was a suitable placement or suitable for visitation. And for the most part, that seems to be true. I agree with Mr. Howitt that there are some concerns there. Nothing that would arise to the level of saying, for example, I would not have refused this relative if she had been available during the first 30 days. Let's put it that way. But at this point, the problem is we know this is a special needs child. She has PT, OT, and things. Some early on services in place. She's bonded with the placement where she is. She's very used to relying on them for not only her daily needs and caretaking, but also for her special needs. There are, when I'm looking at both of these placements, considerations under the best interest factors that would allow me to consider the fact that this placement has developed a strong bond and relationship with the child, has met all of her needs, and has space for her in their home. Looking at this from the child's best interest point, there's a very strong consideration that this court will have towards continuing stability and permanency for this child. There's also the facts that Mr. Howard hit on, which is that now that we know for sure that Ms. Casey is going to be continuing to seek reunification, we need to have this child close enough so that not only are her services continuing to be in place, but that mom can participate in those services if she wants to, that she can participate in visitation without causing a lot of undue stress on mom or the baby. Frankly, I'm not going to require that this child would be transported once or twice a week all the way from Detroit down here for visits. That would be very hard on a child, especially a special needs child. If mom were to try to participate in some of her special needs services and doctor's appointments, she would have to try to arrange transportation all the way up to Detroit, which we know is a factor for Ms. Casey. So there's not only the child's bond here to be considered and whether or not there's a relative, but there's the practical effects that this change would have for purposes of both families and the direction that we're headed. So I am, with the support, of course, of Mr. Howitt and the Foster Care Review Board, going to decline to change the placement at this time. We'll leave the goal in place for Ms. Casey of reunification. I don't have a termination petition on the table at this point. We have services in place. They're underway with Orchards and LNL Parent Aid, with some frustrations, but a very clear indication of the bond between this mother and child. We seem to have a good time together, if nothing else. So Ms. Casey is back in her treatment for purposes of mental health care and engaged in that. So I'd like to give her a little more time to see if she is really serious about reunification. Keep this child local for that purpose, keep her there for purposes of continuing to rely on a safe, stable environment that was identified early on and has had a chance to form a bond with this child since May, which is no small amount of time when your whole life began last February. So for those reasons, I am going to uphold the Foster Care Review Board's holding with the direction of Ms. Dillon to continue to facilitate a relationship between the relative and the child, both pursuant to the manuals as well as just what's been established here. Because if nothing else, I think it's great to expand this child's network of support and people. The efforts towards reunification are certainly received today, both in the documentation as well as the testimony given by Ms. Dillon, who again, I will say, did act according to certainly what she was supposed to do and then some, with this expediency of which she focused her efforts in this case. We also have, I would say, I agree, and I think Ms. Thomas has talked about this before, that this court has high expectations in this county for our caseworkers and for the efforts that are given to help facilitate a parent's efforts. And that's certainly happening here for Ms. Casey, who does have, of course, her mental health diagnoses and the management and facilitation of services and transportation and guidance and one-on-one attention that Ms. Casey is getting certainly is accommodating both her special diagnoses, her special needs, as well as the reasonable efforts that are normally required. So thank you, Ms. Dillon, for your efforts. Mr. Howitt's in satisfaction of his obligations. And thank you for the advocacy of all of our attorneys. The child will remain in her current placement. That is the safest and least restrictive under the circumstances as we await Ms. Casey to further develop her parenting skills, stability in housing, transportation, reliability and visitation, involvement in her child's life, and all of the things that we need to see for her to effectuate a return of the child to her care. And we'll set a review hearing and another permanency planning hearing in 90 days. Let me just look at my. Puts us at the end of November. I have an hour on Tuesday, the 18th at 11, if that works for everyone.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll do our next review and permanency planning hearing on November 18th at 11 a.m. Unless there's any questions, that's all for today.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I will
Anna.
not have your order ready for you. You'll have to wait for that in the mail due to the busy morning we've had here, but I'll note also that the Foster Care Review Board has been addressed and upheld for our purposes today.
Thank you.